The chandeliers inside the Metropolitan Museum of Art glittered like falling stars, casting gold light across polished marble floors. Manhattan's elite drifted through the annual Stone Biotech Gala, women in sleek gowns, men in tailored tuxedos, champagne glasses catching every flash of the cameras. At the center of the crowd, surrounded by board members and investors, stood Adrian Stone, billionaire CEO, the man everyone believed was untouchable. His smile was practiced, perfect, and cold. But beneath the flawless image, his breath was shallow, his pulse uneven, and a sharp pressure gnawed beneath his ribs. Just as the orchestra shifted into a warm crescendo, Adrian lifted his whiskey glass. The moment froze, his fingers trembled. The glass slipped, shattering across the marble. Guests gasped. Adrian clutched his chest, stumbling backward, the color draining from his face. For the first time in years, fear replaced arrogance in his eyes. "Call emergency now," the room erupted. Dresses swished, chairs scraped, security cleared paths. Adrian collapsed near the base of the grand staircase, the same place he had once walked down with the woman he'd discarded like she was nothing. The paramedics rushed him out, sirens slicing through Manhattan's night. When the ambulance doors swung open at Cornell Medical Center, the chief trauma nurse shouted into her comms, "We need the best cardiothoracic surgeon available. This patient won't last an hour." Indent. In the surgical command room, Dr. Aurora Bennett looked up from the chart she was reviewing, her pulse stilled. The name on the incoming trauma file glowed on the screen. Adrian Stone. Age 40. Cardiac crisis. Status: critical. For a moment, her breath caught not from love, but from the scar of betrayal she thought had healed. This was the man who divorced her, humiliated her, destroyed her reputation, and let the world believe she was barren, while she carried a truth he never deserved. A truth now sleeping safely at home. 3 small children with his eyes. The trauma doors slammed open. "Dr. Bennett, your lead surgeon. Prep immediately." Aurora tightened her gloves, masking every trace of emotion. Destiny had a cruel sense of timing. And tonight, it had brought her face to face with the man who once shattered her life, now lying helpless beneath her scalpel. And she hadn't even told him he had children. Dr. Aurora Bennett had learned, far too early, that brilliance alone never protected a woman from cruelty. On paper, her life looked like something out of a Manhattan success story. Atop of her medical class, a rising cardiothoracic surgeon, a woman with discipline etched into her bones. But behind every achievement was a scar she never showed, a private cost no one ever imagined she had paid. Her apartment in Aspen, simple, sunlit, overlooking quiet pine trees, was nothing like the Park Avenue penthouse she had once shared with Adrian Stone. That old world had been all glass, marble, and unspoken threats. Here, the mornings smelled like coffee and baby lotion. Here, peace didn't feel like a luxury, it felt like oxygen. At 5 a.m., her alarm buzzed softly. She rose immediately, her body trained by years of surgical rotations. Aurora tied her hair back, slipped into her running shoes, and jogged through the crisp mountain air, letting the cold sting her lungs. Running was the only time she let her shield down. Every inhale reminded her she had survived. Every exhale reminded her why she had to keep going. Inside the house, 3 small voices stirred awake. 3 little miracles she never planned, never expected, but loved with a depth that frightened her. The triplets, Liam, Noah, and Arya, were the reason she endured the silence after Adrian publicly labeled her barren. The reason she hadn't collapsed when his powerful family spread rumors that she was incapable, unstable, unfit to be in the medical field. They were the reason she rebuilt her life from ash. She kept their world quiet, safe, hidden. Only a few people knew the truth. The nanny who adored them, her attorney Celia Ford, and Dr. Rowan Blake, her mentor, who once said, "Some storms are meant to reveal your strength, not your weakness." Without them, Aurora might have drowned in fear that the Stone family, with all their money and influence, would try to take her children the moment they learned the truth. Her mornings were a dance of precision. She made breakfast with one hand while reviewing surgical notes with the other, her MacBook Pro balanced beside the cereal bowls. Liam liked to tug on her scrubs. Noah preferred climbing anything he shouldn't. Arya, calm and perceptive, watched her mother with eyes too wise for a toddler. "Mommy has surgery today," Aurora whispered, kissing each forehead. "Be good for Miss Clara." There were nights she cried quietly in the shower, overwhelmed by exhaustion and responsibility. But she never broke. Not anymore. Aurora had learned that pain could be transformed, not erased, but reforged into purpose. She kept a small box locked in her bedside drawer. Inside were the remnants of a life she no longer claimed. Her wedding band, the last letter she wrote Adrian but never sent, and the original ultrasound showing 3 heartbeats. Adrian never knew. Adrian never cared enough to ask. Some wounds could be stitched. Others had to be carried. That afternoon, when Cornell Medical Center called, asking if she could temporarily fill in for a colleague, Aurora agreed. She missed the pace, the challenge, the precision of Manhattan's surgical world. But she never expected fate to use that moment as the start of an unraveling. Because behind the quiet of Aspen, behind the calm rhythm she fought so hard to build, destiny was already moving toward her like a storm rolling over the horizon. And that storm had a name she thought she'd never hear again. Manhattan had a way of swallowing people whole. Its skyline gleamed like sharpened steel, and its avenues pulsed with ambition that never slept. For most, the city was a dream. For Aurora Bennett, it had once been a battlefield, one she lost before she learned how to fight. Cornell Medical Center rose above the East River like a monument to brilliance and pressure. Inside, the hallways were a constant blur of scrubs, monitors, rapid footsteps, and clipped instructions. Every surface shone under unforgiving white lights. Every decision carried weight. Every life balanced on minutes, sometimes seconds. This was Aurora's old world, the one she left behind when her life collapsed. And now, stepping back into it, she felt a familiar tension crawl up her spine. Not fear. Muscle memory. The hospital boardroom overlooked Manhattan's skyline, with tall glass windows that made people feel smaller than the city they served. Here, egos clashed with ethics. Here, reputations were built and destroyed with the stroke of a pen. Adrian Stone once held fundraisers in this very building, charming donors with the same smile he used when he told Aurora she was a disappointment. His influence lingered in the walls long after she walked away. But Aurora didn't come back for him. She came back because she was needed. Rowan Blake, the department chief, greeted her with a nod of genuine respect. "New York missed you," he said, handing her a surgical badge. "Though it didn't deserve you." Aurora gave a faint smile. "Let's just hope the ore hasn't changed too much." "It hasn't," Rowan assured. "Just the politics. They've gotten worse." That was the truth. Medicine in Manhattan was never just medicine. It was prestige. It was territory. It was a chessboard controlled by CEOs with money, lawyers with power, and families like the Stones who could make or break careers with a single phone call. Aurora had once been their casualty. The hospital corridors buzzed with familiar energy, residents hurrying past, nurses briefing one another, anesthesiologists wheeling equipment. Aurora walked through it all slowly, absorbing the pulse of the place. It was overwhelming, but it felt like stepping back into her own skin. Outside, Manhattan roared, taxis honking on Fifth Avenue, the glow of digital billboards reflecting off glass towers, the cold wind snaking through crosswalks. This city had witnessed her humiliation. It had also witnessed her greatest achievements. And now, whether she liked it or not, it would witness her return. On her break, Aurora stood near the hospital's upper-level balcony, watching the sun dip behind the skyline. For a moment, the city looked peaceful. But she knew better. Manhattan was never peaceful. It was merely waiting. Her phone buzzed a message from her attorney, Celia Ford. "Bennett, be cautious. Someone in New York leaked that you're back." Aurora's grip tightened. She glanced down at the crowds far below. Businessmen briskly walking, cabs racing, tourists taking photos, unaware that her past had just stirred awake. Because in Manhattan, secrets didn't stay buried, power didn't forgive, and enemies didn't forget. A cold shiver traced her spine. She wasn't just back in the city. She was back on the same battlefield where Adrian Stone had once destroyed her life. And Manhattan had already begun whispering her name again. Adrian Stone was the kind of man strangers admired and those who truly knew him feared. At 40, he carried the polished confidence of someone who'd never heard the word no without finding a way to crush it under his heel. His suits were custom, his presence commanding, his voice always measured, each word chosen like a weapon disguised as courtesy. To the world, he was a visionary billionaire, the face of Stone Biotech Holdings. To Aurora Bennett, he had been a beautifully wrapped disaster. His childhood shaped him into a man who saw vulnerability as a flaw. Raised by Eleanor Stone, a woman whose ambition could slice through glass, Adrian learned early that affection was conditional, and worth was measured in achievements. Every trophy, every deal, every headline about Stone Biotech was another currency of approval. But nothing mattered to Eleanor more than lineage. "A family is an empire," she often said. "Without an heir, it dies." End quote. So when Aurora and Adrian struggled to conceive during their marriage, Eleanor's whispers dug into her son's mind like poison. "You need an heir. You've married the wrong woman. She's the flaw, the embarrassment." What Adrian never admitted, not to himself, not to Aurora, was that doctors had found abnormalities in his tests, not hers. But Eleanor buried those results, and Adrian allowed it. For him, protecting his image mattered more than protecting the woman he had vowed to love. And then came Vivian Hale. Sharp, elegant, and ruthlessly ambitious, Vivian entered Stone Biotech as a communications strategist, but she saw herself as the future Mrs. Stone long before Adrian even noticed her. She knew how to read him, how to weaponize his insecurities, how to praise his brilliance while subtly undermining Aurora. Vivian played the long game, planting seeds. "Your wife doesn't understand your destiny. She holds you back. She doesn't support the legacy you're building." 2024. Adrian believed her, because it fed his ego. Because it was easier than facing the truth. After the divorce, Vivian became a shadow at his side, shaping press releases, smoothing scandals, whispering strategic lies. But she wasn't there for love. She was there because tying herself to a powerful, emotionally fractured man would secure her future. Adrian remained blind to the manipulation, maybe because he needed someone to fill the void Aurora once occupied, or maybe because he never truly wanted love, only validation. Yet beneath the mask of invincibility, Adrian carried a secret no one knew. Chronic chest pain he ignored, dizziness he blamed on stress, and test results he hid even from himself. Power made him careless. Arrogance made him fragile. And denial made him mortal. Vivian noticed the signs but chose silence. A sick Adrian was a controllable Adrian. A vulnerable Adrian was easier to steer. Every empire had a weak point, and she meant to use his. What Adrian feared most wasn't death. It was irrelevance, losing control, being exposed as flawed. But fate had already chosen his moment of reckoning. The gala collapse wasn't the beginning of his downfall. It was simply the moment the world finally saw the cracks that had been spreading for years. And as he lay unconscious in the hospital, machines breathing for him, the woman he once humiliated was walking toward the operating room with steady footsteps. And Adrian Stone had no idea that the greatest threat to his empire was the truth she carried silently in her heart. The humiliation didn't happen in a dark corner or behind closed doors. It unfolded under chandeliers, in front of Manhattan's most powerful eyes. The night that shattered Aurora Bennett's world began at the Stone Biotech Winter Fundraiser, an event she never wanted to attend but was expected to stand beside Adrian like a well-trained accessory. The ballroom at the plaza shimmered with gold trim and polished floors, the kind of place where reputations were made with a handshake and destroyed with a whisper. Aurora arrived in a simple navy gown, elegant but understated. She never cared for extravagance, but Adrian insisted she look the part. He liked perfection. He liked obedience. He liked when she blended into the background so he could shine brighter. From the moment she stepped inside, she felt something was wrong. Conversations around her stalled, glances flickered her way, pitying, curious, sharp. Even the board members seemed unusually tense. But she pushed the unease aside and focused on being polite, graceful, steady. That's what she always did. Vivian Hale approached first. Her smile was polished, too wide, too sweet, like sugar coating a blade. "Aurora," she purred. "You look rested. Must be nice having so much free time." Aurora blinked. "I'm still working full shifts, Vivian." "Of course," Vivian replied innocently. "I only meant well. Adrian tells everyone how difficult things have been for you, especially with the fertility issues." The words dropped like stones into the hush around them. Aurora felt the room tilt. People were listening. They always listened when gossip involved the Stone family. She steadied her voice. "I don't discuss my medical history at galas." Vivian's eyes glittered with victory. "Oh, honey, You don't have to. Adrian already did. Before Aurora could respond, a microphone clicked on. Adrian stood at the center of the ballroom, spotlight washing over him. His expression was serene, almost noble, an actor ready for his performance. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "thank you for supporting Stone Biotech's mission to build a healthier future. Tonight, I want to acknowledge someone very important." He paused, and for a moment, Aurora felt foolish hope lift in her chest. But no. He turned, not to her, but to Vivian. "Vivian Hale," he continued, "has been the backbone of our company's success this year. Her dedication, her vision. She has stood by me through challenges most people could never imagine. Ever." The audience applauded. Cameras flashed. Vivian pretended to blush. Aurora froze. This wasn't recognition. This was replacement. Then, Adrian delivered the blow that left her breathless. "Some partnerships fade," he said smoothly, deliberately. "Some paths diverge, but growth requires difficult choices. I believe in building a legacy for the future, one that cannot be jeopardized by limitations." The air left her lungs. Limitations. He meant her. He meant her inability to conceive. He meant that she was inadequate. Her ears rang, her vision blurred. All she wanted was to step back, to find a corner, to breathe. But all of Manhattan's elite watched her like she was a spectacle. Adrian lifted his glass toward Vivian. "To new beginnings." Vivian smiled, and Aurora shattered. She walked out of the ballroom, each step echoing like a verdict. Outside, winter wind lashed against her face, but it didn't hurt as much as the words still burning inside her. She knew her marriage was ending. What she didn't know was that humiliation was only the first strike. Because the next morning, the entire city would wake up to headlines using her name, and none of them were true. Aurora didn't remember the cab ride home. She didn't remember climbing the stairs to the penthouse or shutting the door behind her. All she remembered was the silence, the kind that wrapped around her throat like an iron hand. She stood in the middle of the living room, still in her navy gown, staring blindly at the skyline glowing beyond the glass walls. Manhattan sparkled as if nothing had happened, as if her world hadn't been ripped open in front of hundreds of strangers. Her fingers trembled when she reached for the zipper of her dress. She tugged once, twice, then gave up. The gown felt like a trap, a shell she couldn't escape. She sank to the floor, knees folding under her, forehead pressing against the cool hardwood. Her breath came in sharp, uneven bursts. For the first time since medical school, Aurora Bennett couldn't structure her world into steps, tasks, logic. She couldn't fix this. Her phone buzzed relentlessly, messages from colleagues, friends, reporters hunting a reaction. Headlines were already spreading online. Billionaire CEO makes emotional announcement about new future. Sources reveal fertility struggles behind stone marriage. Inside the private pain of Dr. Aurora Bennett. Private pain. They made it sound poetic, digestible. They didn't know the truth. They didn't know Adrian had lied to protect himself. They didn't know he had let the world believe she was the broken one. Aurora crawled toward the bedroom, gripping the carpet fibers as if they could anchor her sanity. When she reached her nightstand, she opened the drawer with shaking fingers. Inside lay the medical file she kept hidden, the one that proved Adrian's infertility, the one she was too loyal, too hopeful, too in love to ever use against him. She pressed the papers to her chest and finally sobbed. Hours blurred, the city dimmed. Her eyes burned, her throat raw, her body heavy with grief and betrayal. She sat curled against the side of the bed, still in the crumpled gown, hair undone, mascara tracing the truth down her cheeks. She didn't hear the door open until a soft voice cut through the darkness. "Aurora?" It was Rowan Blake. He approached slowly, as if nearing a wounded animal. "I saw the news," he said gently. "I thought you shouldn't be alone tonight." Aurora covered her face. "He humiliated me," she whispered. "He told the world I was defective." Rowan knelt beside her. "You are one of the strongest surgeons I've ever trained, and you are not broken. You're heartbroken, and that's very different." His kindness undid her all over again. She leaned into his shoulder, not for romance, not for comfort, but for something simpler, human steadiness. "I don't know what to do," she confessed. "You don't have to decide tonight," Rowan murmured. "Just breathe. If we have a Z." But even breathing felt like a battle. When Rowan finally left, insisting she call him the moment she needed help, Aurora dragged herself to the bathroom. She turned on the shower, steam filling the room. Water pounded against her skin, mixing with her tears. She let everything fall, the fear, the humiliation, the shame she never deserved. When the water finally ran cold, she stepped out and caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. Pale, hollow-eyed, defeated. A woman who had given everything and been repaid in cruelty. She reached for a towel but froze when she heard a faint sound from the living room. A soft thud. Then another. Her pulse quickened. She wasn't expecting anyone. Aurora wrapped the towel tighter and moved toward the sound. Every step slow, tense, uncertain. Because sometimes the worst moments in a woman's life aren't the ones she sees coming, but the ones waiting quietly in the dark. Aurora stepped into the dimly lit living room, heart pounding, hair damp from the shower. The penthouse was silent except for the soft hum of the heating vents. She scanned the shadows. Nothing. No intruder. No danger. Just her frayed nerves twisting shadows into threats. Then she heard it again. A faint, rhythmic thump. Her eyes dropped to the floor. It was her medical folder, the same one she had pressed to her chest hours earlier, now lying open. Papers scattered across the hardwood as if someone had kicked or pushed them. But the disturbing part wasn't that the file had fallen. It was the freshly printed envelope beside it. An envelope she hadn't placed there. Her breath caught as she picked it up. It was unmarked, no return address, no name, just her own handwriting on the flap. Except she had never written it. Hands trembling, she opened it. Inside was a small memory card and a single sheet of paper. 4 words, typed in clean black ink. You need to know. Aurora sank onto the couch, pulse racing. She slid the memory card into her laptop. A video appeared time-stamped 2 weeks before the gala. The footage showed a dim office, an exam room she recognized instantly. Adrian sat on the edge of a clinic bed, jaw tight, eyes restless. Across from him, a fertility specialist flipped through lab results with visible discomfort. "Mr. Stone," the doctor said, "I'm afraid these tests confirm severe oligospermia. Natural conception is unlikely. Even IVF success rates will be very low." Aurora pressed a hand to her mouth. The doctor continued, "I strongly recommend transparency with your wife. This isn't her fault." Adrian looked away cold, dismissive. "Destroy the file." "Sir, ethically, destroy it," he repeated. "Now." End quote. The screen froze. Aurora leaned back, a dull ache blooming inside her chest. She had known Adrian was capable of cruelty. She had known he chose pride over truth. But this deliberate, clinical betrayal was a level of malice she hadn't dared imagine. The next video autoplayed. Vivian, standing in the Stone Biotech PR room, gloating to someone off-screen. "We push the narrative gently," she said. "Failed marriage, fertility challenges, emotional strain. People sympathize with a man under pressure. And Aurora? She's a surgeon, they'll assume she put career first." She laughed lightly. A barren wife and a lonely CEO. It's a perfect story arc. Aurora slammed the laptop shut, the sound echoing harshly. Her vision blurred with rage, not the fragile pain from the gala, not the shame she carried, but something hotter, sharper, born from truth. Her hands shook as she grabbed her phone. Rowan answered on the first ring. "Aurora? Are you all right?" "No." Her voice cracked. "But I finally know everything." She told him the truth about the videos, the lies, the cover-up. Rowan listened silently, then said, "This wasn't just personal. This was professional sabotage, criminal sabotage." Aurora exhaled shakily. "Someone sent me the evidence. Someone who wants me to fight." "Then fight," Rowan said firmly. "But don't do it alone." She hung up and stared again at the memory card. Who recorded these? Who risked their career to send them? Who wanted to expose Adrian and Vivian now? Her gaze drifted to the window, to the glittering skyline of Manhattan. The city was wide awake, whispering secrets it had buried for years. Someone out there knew the whole story. Someone out there wanted her to rise. And that someone was about to break the war wide open. Aurora didn't sleep that night. She watched the city lights flicker across her living room walls, replaying the videos over and over until anger burned through every vein like electricity. But this time, the anger didn't crush her, it clarified her. For the first time since the downfall of her marriage, she saw a path forward, sharp and unforgiving. By sunrise, the fragile, broken version of herself was gone. She showered, tied her hair back, and dressed not in her usual soft sweaters or scrubs, but in a fitted charcoal suit she hadn't touched since her fellowship days in Manhattan. Her reflection looked different, older, stronger, colder. A woman who had been shattered, rebuilt, and now stood balanced on steel. She called Celia Ford, her attorney. "Meet me at the Aspen office," Aurora said. "I'm ready to move." The extrasum. In November, Celia arrived with coffee in one hand and a legal pad in the other, eyes sharp with both worry and anticipation. "Whatever changed overnight," she said. "You look like someone who's done being hunted." "I have evidence," Aurora said, sliding the memory card across the table. "Everything they hid. Everything they used to destroy my reputation." Celia reviewed the contents in silence. With each video, her eyebrows lifted, then tightened, then locked into a look of calculated fury. "This isn't just actionable," she said. "This is dynamite. Adrian committed medical record tampering. Vivian orchestrated defamation. The Stone family used corporate influence to sabotage your credibility. Aurora, this is bigger than your divorce. This is a scandal that can take down an empire." Aurora exhaled slowly. "Good. But transformation wasn't only about revenge, it was about reclaiming the ground she had lost." Celia drafted a legal strategy. Rowan sent supportive messages from New York, and Aurora made a decision she had avoided for years. She booked a flight to Manhattan. Packing was strangely easy. She folded her scrubs, her stethoscope, her notes, and one photograph of the triplets asleep in their crib. They were the reason she fought. They were the reason she couldn't afford fear. Before leaving for the airport, she stopped at the nursery. Liam and Noah were tangled together in their blankets, their small breaths warm and steady. Arya slept with her tiny hand curled beneath her cheek, peaceful and unaware of the storm waiting in the world outside. Aurora knelt beside them. "Mommy has to be brave," she whispered. "So one day, you'll never have to be." She pressed a quiet kiss to each forehead, then walked away before her resolve could fracture. Hours later, the airplane lifted off, Aspen's mountains shrinking behind her. Manhattan rose ahead like a challenge she could finally meet head-on. She spent the flight reviewing surgical updates from Rowan, reading Celia's legal drafts, and organizing documents. Every task sharpened her focus. Every plan stripped away the fear. When the plane touched down at JFK, Aurora stepped into the terminal with renewed purpose. Gone was the woman hiding from scandal, shielding her children, shrinking under the weight of betrayal. She was Dr. Aurora Bennett again, brilliant, relentless, controlled. A black car waited at the curb. Rowan had arranged it. As Aurora slid into the back seat, the driver nodded. "Cornell Medical Center?" "No," she said. "Stone Biotech headquarters." The driver blinked, surprised, but pulled into traffic. Aurora watched the Manhattan skyline rise in the distance, glass towers, steel edges, a city that had once devoured her. Not this time. This time, she wasn't returning as a victim. She was returning as a storm. And the first person to face her would be the man who never believed she'd rise again. Manhattan was gray and restless, the morning Aurora arrived outside Stone Biotech headquarters. Steel towers loomed above her like silent judges, their reflective windows catching her determined stride as she crossed the plaza. Employees streamed through the revolving doors, their ID badges flashing under the security lights. None of them knew that the woman walking toward the entrance carried the truth that could bring the entire empire to its knees. Inside, the lobby buzzed with weekday efficiency, heels clicking, elevators chiming, assistants balancing tablets and coffee cups. The moment Aurora stepped onto the marble floor, conversations paused. People recognized her. Whispers followed. "Is that Dr. Bennett? The ex-wife? Why is she here?" Aurora ignored every pair of eyes. She approached the security desk. "Dr. Aurora Bennett, I'm here to see Vivian Hale." The guard blinked. "Does Miss Hale know you're coming?" "She will in 30 seconds, Aurora replied, sliding her badge from her surgical coat. "Tell her it's urgent. And tell her I'm done being silent." The guard hesitated, then made the call. Within minutes, Vivian appeared on the mezzanine, above stilettos, sharp, posture confident, expression carved from ice. She descended the stairs with the smug precision of someone who believed she could not be touched. "Aurora," she said, her smile tight. "To what do we owe this? Surprise?" Aurora met her gaze without flinching. "We need to talk, privately." Vivian tilted her head. "Anything you have to say, you can say here." Aurora's lips curved slightly. "Fine." 18. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder, the same folder containing the memory card, printed transcripts, and timeline Celia had prepared. The color drained from Vivian's face before Aurora even spoke. "This," Aurora said calmly, "is evidence of medical tampering, defamation, and corporate manipulation. Every lie you fed the press, every whisper you planted, every record Adrian ordered destroyed. Employees turned. Conversations died. People in the lobby slowed, watching." Vivian scoffed, but her voice wavered. "You're bluffing." Aurora opened the folder. "I have footage. Audio. Documents signed under your name. HR complaints from 2 employees you threatened, and a copy of the clinic report you helped bury." Vivian's breath hitched. "You don't know what you're doing." "Oh, I do," Aurora said softly. "I'm giving you a chance to step aside before this becomes public." Vivian lunged forward, voice low and acidic. "You think you can come in here and tear down everything we built? You're a surgeon, Aurora. You fix hearts. You don't win wars." Aurora stepped closer. "You're wrong. I'm a surgeon. I know exactly where to cut." A gasp rippled through the lobby. At that moment, the elevator behind them chimed. The doors slid open. Adrian Stone, pale, tense, recovering from his collapse, stepped out, supported by a security aide. His eyes widened the moment he saw Aurora. "Aurora, what are you doing here?" She didn't turn. Didn't blink. "Your empire," she said evenly, "is built on lies. And it's time they come down." Adrian's voice cracked. "We can talk." "No," Aurora said. "You talked enough when you let the world believe I was broken." Vivian tried to interject, but Aurora's voice cut through the space like a scalpel. "I'm filing charges. Today, against both of you." The entire lobby froze. Adrian staggered. "You're going to destroy everything. Everyone." Aurora finally looked at him, her expression steady, resolved. "No. I'm going to reveal everything. What it destroys is up to you." Then she turned, walked toward the exit, the folder held like a verdict. Behind her, the Stone Empire trembled, and she had no idea that someone else, someone unexpected, was already preparing to step into the fire with her. Aurora stepped out of the revolving doors of Stone Biotech, her pulse still steady from the confrontation. The winter air slapped her cheeks, sharp and cleansing, but she didn't slow her stride. She had just declared war on the most powerful corporate family in Manhattan, and strangely, she felt lighter. For once, the truth wasn't a weight. It was a weapon. But battles this big were never fought alone. As she crossed the plaza, a familiar voice called out behind her. Aurora Bennett, still walking into fires without checking the wind direction. She froze. Elliot Hayes. She hadn't seen him in almost 10 years. Not since medical school, when they'd studied in the same library corners and shared late-night coffee breaks. He had disappeared into the world of venture capital, building a quiet reputation as the man who salvaged companies others declared unsalvageable. Now he stood before her in a tailored coat, hands in his pockets, eyes steady with a mix of concern and something warmer, something she didn't have the courage to name. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I heard Stone Biotech was trembling," he said with a half-smile. "And when Manhattan trembles, I tend to investigate." His expression softened. "Then I saw you walk out of the building like you were carrying a detonator." Aurora huffed a breath. "Close enough." Elliot's smile faded. "I saw the headlines after the gala. I knew something wasn't right. And today just confirmed it." Aurora hesitated. She had no reason to trust anyone. Certainly not with her secrets. But Elliot's presence felt grounding. Familiar. Unaffected by the toxic orbit Adrian had created. "You don't know the whole story," she said quietly. "Then tell me." They walked to a bench overlooking the frozen fountain. Aurora explained everything, the videos, the lies, the sabotage, the humiliation that cost her career and nearly broke her spirit. Elliot didn't interrupt. He listened the way surgeons listen to heart monitors, precise, focused, reading between every beat. When she finished, he leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Aurora, what they did wasn't just unethical. It was a coordinated takedown. And you're going after them alone?" "I'm not alone," she said. "I have an attorney. I have Rowan. I have myself. And now, Elliot added, you have me. She frowned. Why? This isn't your fight. It is if it involves you. He held her gaze. And I've seen enough corporate warfare to know when someone is being targeted. I don't like bullies. Especially billionaire ones with too much pride and too little conscience. Aurora blinked, caught off guard by the intensity in his voice. Before she could respond, Elliot pulled out his tablet. I can track who sent that memory card. No one gives evidence like that without motive. Someone inside Stone Biotech wanted this to surface. And we need to find out why. Aurora stiffened. You think there's another player? Oh, I'm sure of it, Elliot said. Secrets like these don't float. Someone pushed them to you, someone close. A ripple of unease crawled up her spine. Close to Adrian? Or close to me? Elliot didn't answer. His eyes darkened thoughtfully. Aurora, the moment you stepped into that building, the board felt it. Adrian felt it. Vivian definitely felt it. You just destabilized the entire power structure. Aurora swallowed. Good. Elliot smiled softly. You always had more fire than you realized. Before she could reply, Elliot's tablet pinged a trace result. His expression changed instantly. He turned the screen toward her. Aurora, you're not going to believe who sent you the evidence. And when she read the name, her entire world tilted for the second time. Aurora stared at the tablet in Elliot Hayes's hands, her breath stalling for a full second. The name glowing on the screen didn't make sense. It didn't fit any theory she had built in her mind since the memory card appeared in her penthouse. The sender was not a whistleblower, not a sympathetic employee, not even a quiet insider hoping for justice. It was someone far more dangerous. Eleanor Stone, Adrian's mother. Aurora's heartbeat hammered in her ears. That can't be right, she whispered. Eleanor hates me. Elliot shook his head. Data doesn't lie. The file passed through an encrypted channel registered to one of her private offices. And that type of routing, Aurora, only someone with extreme access could have pulled those clinic videos. Aurora felt the ground shift beneath her. Eleanor Stone, the woman who once sneered at her wedding ring, who dismissed her as a temporary mistake, who insisted Aurora was unworthy of the Stone legacy, had sent her the very evidence that could ruin her own son. It defied logic. But Manhattan's power circles were built on logic, twisted into survival. Elliot watched her carefully. Whatever you think you know about Eleanor, there's more. People like her don't make emotional decisions, they make strategic ones. Aurora swallowed hard. She's protecting the company. Adrian is the weak point. Exactly, Elliot said. Maybe she sent the evidence to remove him quietly. Maybe she wants you to expose him so she doesn't have to. But a tweet? As a 7. Aurora closed her eyes, memories crashing back the cold gaze, the veiled insults, the way Eleanor scrutinized every move she made during her marriage. That woman was not a mother. She was a monarch guarding a throne. But why send the evidence to me? Aurora murmured. Why not leak it to the press? Elliot leaned in. Because she needed someone with moral credibility, someone the board would believe, someone Adrian couldn't accuse of ambition. He paused. She needed the wife he humiliated, the doctor he discarded. That realization felt like a stone dropping into Aurora's stomach. This wasn't help. This wasn't sympathy. This was a weapon delivered to the enemy of her enemy. Aurora stood abruptly. I have to talk to her. Elliot grabbed her wrist gently. Aurora, be careful. Eleanor Stone doesn't invite conversation. She traps people in it. I don't care, she said. I'm done being the one who flinches. And great now. Hours later, she found herself in the lobby of Stone Tower East, a quieter satellite building Eleanor used to avoid press attention. The receptionist, stone-faced and impeccably dressed, escorted Aurora to a private elevator. Each floor the elevator passed tightened the knot in her stomach. When she stepped out onto the top floor, Eleanor Stone was already waiting. Tall, regal, unmoving, like a statue carved from ice and ambition. Aurora, Eleanor said, her voice smooth as silk stretched over steel. You came faster than I expected. Aurora didn't sit. Why did you send me those files? Eleanor regarded her with unsettling calm. Because Adrian is no longer fit to lead. His collapse proved that. His arrogance proved that long before. And you want me to destroy him? Eleanor's lips curved slightly. I want the truth to destroy whatever is unworthy. Then, with chilling clarity, my son included. End quote. Aurora felt the words strike her like a slap. You used me. I empowered you, Eleanor corrected. You have more integrity than half this city. The board will believe you. And I prefer a clean removal rather than a scandal tied to our name. Aurora's pulse surged with anger. I'm not your executioner. No, Eleanor said. You're something far more powerful. You're the one person Adrian never expected to rise. Aurora stared at her, realization dawning. This wasn't just about evidence. It was about strategy. A mother willing to sacrifice her own son to save the family empire. Before Aurora could respond, Eleanor added quietly, and there is something else you need to know. Something Adrian hid not just from you, but from everyone. She slid a sealed envelope across the desk. Aurora hesitated, fingers trembling as she reached for it, because whatever was inside that envelope had the power to alter the entire war. Aurora stared at the envelope as if it were ticking. Thick, ivory paper, wax seal stamped with the Stone family crest. Heavy, as though weighted by consequences instead of documents. Eleanor Stone watched her with cool amusement, fingers folded neatly, posture regal and calculating. Open it, Eleanor said. You deserve to know the full scope of Adrian's deceit. Aurora's pulse thudded as she broke the seal. Inside were 3 items, a medical report, a notarized contract, and a birthright document with her name on it. The first page made her blood run cold. It was Adrian's full fertility report, unredacted, time-stamped months before her own evaluation. The result wasn't low count, as the hidden video revealed. It was 0 viability. According to this report, Adrian could never biologically father a child. Aurora felt the room tilt. Her voice cracked. This can't be right. Eleanor didn't blink. It's accurate. My son has known for years. 8. Aurora's mind raced backward through time, every insult, every conversation, every jab, implying she was the problem. The public humiliation, the sympathetic looks, the lies, and her triplets. Her knees softened, but I carried his embryos. The IVF, I saw his signature on the, which brought her to the second page. A contract, signed by Adrian, signed by someone else too, a donor whose identity was redacted. Aurora felt dizzy. Adrian used a donor without telling me? Eleanor lifted her chin. He used a donor to protect the Stone name, but the clinic mishandled the paperwork, and the original consent forms were buried when his medical results were suppressed. She leaned forward. Your children were conceived under fraudulent circumstances, not by your choice, not by informed consent. Aurora's heart hammered with betrayal so deep it felt like it cracked something inside her. All these years she carried guilt, wondering what she had done wrong, why Adrian blamed her, why his family acted like she was defective. But she wasn't the one who had lied. She wasn't the broken one. She was the one deceived. She said quietly, almost to herself, he let me believe those children were his. Eleanor spoke without remorse. They are yours. They are innocent. But Adrian's involvement ends at his signature. Legally, he has no paternal claim. Aurora's breath caught. A mixture of relief and rage surged through her. He has no claim on them? None, Eleanor confirmed. Which means he cannot take them from you. He cannot challenge custody. He cannot use them as leverage. She tapped the third document. And as their mother, you alone hold the legal right to decide whether the Stone name touches your children at all. Aurora held the papers with trembling fingers. Why are you telling me this? Eleanor's expression sharpened. Because my son's downfall is inevitable. His leadership is crumbling, his health is failing, and his empire cannot survive another scandal. I need someone strong enough, credible enough, to expose him properly. And you want that person to be me. I want justice, Eleanor said smoothly, delivered by the one person Adrian cannot silence. Aurora's eyes narrowed. You don't want justice, you want control. Eleanor smiled faintly. Control and justice often walk together. If you have F2, Aurora closed the envelope slowly. I'm not your weapon. No, Eleanor replied. You're something far more effective. You're the truth everyone has been afraid to face. Aurora turned toward the door, heart pounding with a new, fierce clarity. But before she could leave, Eleanor spoke one final sentence, calm, precise, devastating. Dr. Bennett, the donor Adrian used, wasn't chosen at random. Aurora froze. Her voice shook. Then who was it? Eleanor's answer would shatter every certainty Aurora thought she had left. Aurora turned back slowly, her hand still hovering over the doorknob. Eleanor Stone watched her with an expression too calm for the storm she had just unleashed. The silence in the room thickened, stretching like a wire pulled to the point of snapping. "Who was the donor, Eleanor?" Aurora repeated, her voice steady but trembling underneath. Eleanor folded her hands. "Someone Adrian admired. Someone he envied. Someone he considered. Competition." Aurora's breath caught. "Competition? For your attention," Eleanor clarified. The words echoed in Aurora's mind, strange and dissonant. She had never sought attention from anyone else during her marriage. Adrian barely left space for her to breathe, let alone notice someone. Eleanor continued, "The donor was selected not for genetics alone, but to avoid scandal. Adrian insisted the match be anonymous, but he also insisted on certain qualities." Aurora felt her pulse quicken. What qualities? Intelligence, emotional stability, medical aptitude. Eleanor's eyes sharpened. Traits he believed you would value. A chill spread across Aurora's skin. "He wanted the children to resemble what he could never be," Eleanor said. "So he chose someone who did." Aurora swallowed hard. "Just tell me his name." "Different." Eleanor hesitated just for a moment before speaking the name that would slice clean through Aurora's world. "Elliot Hayes." Aurora froze. Her mind raced in every direction at once. Elliot, her closest friend from medical school. The man who reappeared only days ago. The one she had trusted instinctively, maybe too easily. The one who had stood beside her like a shield, without needing explanation. And now she learned he was connected to her children in a way she never imagined. "No," she whispered. "Elliot would have told me." "Consent forms were signed under confidentiality," Eleanor replied. "The clinic was under pressure," Adrian insisted. "Elliot never knew the recipient. He only donated because his friend, your husband, told him it was for an anonymous couple struggling to conceive." Aurora swayed slightly, gripping the edge of the desk. Memories collided. Elliot laughing during anatomy lab. Elliot giving her coffee before exams. Elliot disappearing from her life right around the time she and Adrian began IVF treatments. Had he known? Had he suspected? Had he recognized anything in her children? Eleanor's voice was cold and precise. "My son weaponized everyone around him, Aurora. You were not the only one deceived." Aurora's heartbeat surged painfully. "Elliot deserves to know the truth." "Perhaps," Eleanor said, "but consider the consequences. The moment this information surfaces, the world will question paternity. Adrian's empire will implode. The donor records will go public. Your children may become the center of a media circus." Aurora lifted her chin. "I won't hide the truth. Truth is only useful when wielded wisely," Eleanor warned. "Do not forget that." Aurora stepped back from the desk, envelope in hand. The room felt smaller now, heavier. She could barely breathe. "Make no mistake," Eleanor added, her voice soft but lethal. "Adrian cannot ever claim your children, but Elliot? He may want to, and he has every legal right to pursue that claim." Aurora's breath hitched violently. Her mind spiraled. Elliot holding her children, Elliot laughing with them, Elliot realizing they carried his eyes, his dimples, the same tilt of his smile. She didn't know whether to fear it or to feel something dangerously close to hope. Without another word, Aurora turned and walked out of the office. The envelope clutched like a live wire. The hallway outside blurred as she moved, the reality of everything pressing against her ribs until she could barely inhale. She needed air. She needed space. She needed answers from the one man who deserved to know the truth. She stepped into the elevator, heart thundering, and at that exact moment, her phone buzzed with a message from Elliot Hayes asking to meet immediately. Aurora arrived at the small rooftop cafe Elliot had chosen, quiet, tucked between two tall residential buildings, with a soft glow of string lights flickering above the tables. It was shockingly peaceful for Manhattan, as though the city paused just long enough to let truth surface. Elliot stood when he saw her, worry etched across his features. "Aurora, you look pale. What happened at Stone Tower?" She didn't sit immediately. Her breath shook, the envelope heavy in her hand, like a stone dragging her underwater. Elliot, she whispered, I need to ask you something. And I need the truth. All of it. He frowned gently. You're scaring me. Just tell me. So she did. She placed the envelope on the table between them and slid it toward him. This is what Adrian hid from me. From everyone. And you're part of it. Elliot's eyes flickered with confusion. He opened the envelope and pulled out the donor contract. The more he read, the tighter his jaw became. By the time he reached the final clause, his hands trembled. Aurora. He looked up sharply. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know. Tears stung her eyes, anger, confusion, something fragile beneath it she refused to name. You donated. For Adrian. Yes, he said, breath unsteady. But he told me it was for an anonymous couple, a friend of his and his wife struggling with IVF. I didn't know, Aurora. I didn't know it was you. D97. Aurora swallowed hard. And the triplets? They're biologically yours. Elliot closed his eyes. Pain crossed his face, not panic, not regret, but something deeper. I never imagined, never suspected that they might be mine. Adrian said the couple didn't want contact. He said it was confidential. Aurora watched him closely. Eleanor claims you have legal rights, that you could pursue them. He opened his eyes again, emotion burning behind them. I would never take your children from you. Never. If anything, He cut himself off, running a hand through his hair. Aurora, I would have stood by you. I would have loved them. I would have loved you. Her heart jolted painfully. Years of suppressed feelings, buried beneath her devotion to Adrian and her fear of betrayal, surged all at once. Elliot had always cared quietly, respectfully. From a distance, she once insisted on keeping. I don't know what to think, she whispered. I don't know what this makes us. I quote. Elliot leaned across the table, voice low, steady. It makes us two people who were manipulated by the same man, who were lied to, who were robbed of choices that should have been ours. Aurora blinked rapidly, her defenses cracking. Do you resent it? The children? Me? His answer came instantly. Aurora, those children are miracles. And you're the strongest woman I know. I don't resent a single thing. I only resent the lies that kept me from being there for you when you needed someone. It's make sure. Her breath caught. He reached out, gently touching her trembling hands. Let me be here now. Her walls, so carefully rebuilt, trembled. I can't think about anything except survival right now, she whispered. The lawsuit, Adrian, Vivian, Eleanor, the board, everything is about to explode. Then let it explode, Elliot said softly. And when it does, I'll stand beside you. Not because of the children, not because of the past, but because I choose you. Thanks for watching. Aurora's throat tightened so hard she couldn't speak. Just as she found enough air to respond, her phone buzzed violently on the table, emergency alert flashing across the screen. Cornell Medical Center. Critical patient. Immediate surgical request. The name attached made Aurora's blood run cold. Adrian Stone was crashing, and she was the only surgeon who could save him. Aurora sprinted through the hospital entrance, her heels echoing across the polished floor. The cold night air still clung to her coat, but inside Cornell Medical Center, everything was heat, urgency, panic, alarms blaring down hallways. Nurses rushed past with crash carts, and overhead announcements crackled with urgency. Dr. Bennett, ICU needs you immediately. He's unstable. She didn't need to ask who. Her chest tightened as she pushed through two swinging glass doors and entered the cardiac command area. Rowan Blake met her halfway, his expression a mixture of relief and dread. He's in ventricular failure, Rowan said, voice clipped. We've been shocking him for 15 minutes. He's not responding. Aurora forced her breath steady. Vitals? Dropping. Fast. If we don't get him into the OR now, we'll lose him. Her mind raced, medical instincts rising over emotion like a curtain being pulled. Prep the theater. I'll lead. Rowan hesitated. Aurora, you don't have to do this. She met his gaze with icy certainty. I do. I'm the only one who can. If this fact of the prosed of. They rushed toward the OR. Through the glass window, Aurora saw Adrian Stone on the gurney, pale, limp, tubes snaking from his arms, monitors screaming warnings. His chest rose in shallow, failing attempts at breath. He looked nothing like the man who once humiliated her under the glow of chandeliers. He looked human, fragile, mortal. And for a split second, she felt nothing. No hatred. No pity. Only clarity. Adrian Stone was a patient. And she was a surgeon. Aurora scrubbed in, tying her mask with practiced precision. The ore lights blazed awake above her, cold, bright, merciless. Assistants arranged instruments. Anesthesiologists murmured updates. The air hummed with tension. "Scalpel," she said. Her voice was steady, unshaken. The same voice she used to deliver babies from dying mothers. The same voice she had lost and rebuilt after surviving public ruin. She made the first incision. Hours blurred into one another as Aurora navigated the failing structures of Adrian's heart. His previous condition was worse than anyone reported: tissue weakened, vessels strained, years of untreated symptoms ignored. Vivian had hidden the severity. Adrian had hidden the truth from himself. Now his denial was killing him. "BP dropping," a nurse called. Aurora's hands moved with lightning precision. "Clamp there. Increase perfusion. Suction, now. If you want a Jenna." The monitors beeped erratically, the rhythm chaotic and fragile. Sweat collected at Aurora's brow beneath her surgical cap. She worked as if stitching together her own past, threading focus into torn places, stabilizing failures, repairing damage no one else could. At one point, Adrian's heart trembled dangerously, wavering between life and silence. The room held its breath. "Come on," Aurora whispered, not to him, but to the muscle beneath her hands. "You survive everything else. Survive this." Her touch coaxed the rhythm back. Her precision rebuilt what pride had broken. Her strength kept him alive. After nearly 4 hours, Rowan exhaled. "He's stabilizing. Aurora, you did it." She stepped back, heart thundering, hands trembling faintly as the adrenaline drained. Adrian was alive because she chose to save him. She stripped off her gloves slowly, staring at the man who had nearly destroyed her life. And now, ironically, she was the only reason he still had one. "Transfer him to recovery," she said, voice low. As she walked out of the OR, exhaustion tugging at her bones, a nurse caught up to her. "Dr. Bennett, there's someone waiting for you outside." Aurora frowned. "Who?" The nurse swallowed, eyes wide. "It's Adrian Stone's attorney. She says it's urgent." Aurora stiffened, and when she stepped into the hallway, the attorney delivered news that threatened to turn the entire victory into a new battlefield. Aurora stepped into the hallway, still wearing her surgical gown, her pulse settling but her mind sharp as glass. The fluorescent lights above her hummed softly, a sharp contrast to the adrenaline that had fueled her through the night. She expected to see a nurse, maybe Rowan, someone familiar, gentle. Instead, a woman in a sleek charcoal suit stepped forward. "Dr. Bennett," she said, extending a folder. "I'm Valerie Knox, legal counsel for Adrian Stone." Aurora's stomach tightened. "What do you want?" Valerie's expression was unreadable. "To clarify Adrian Stone's wishes regarding his medical care, his estate, and you." Aurora felt her blood pressure spike. "I saved his life. That's all I needed to do." "Yes," Valerie said softly. "And because you did, everything is now complicated." Aurora crossed her arms. "Explain." Valerie opened the folder, revealing a stack of documents. Before his collapse, Mr. Stone updated his legal directives. In the event of a life-threatening medical incident, the person responsible for saving his life would have authority to make temporary decisions on his behalf until he regains capacity. Aurora blinked. Why would he write something like that? Valerie hesitated. Because he knew his health was deteriorating, and because despite everything, he trusted your judgment more than anyone else's. Aurora felt the floor shift. He doesn't even trust himself. "Correct," Valerie replied. "Which means, Dr. Bennett, that you now hold temporary legal authority over certain aspects of his care." Aurora's throat tightened. This was the last thing she wanted. "I don't want power over him. I want distance." Valerie nodded. "I understand, but the law doesn't care what either of you want right now. It cares what was signed." Aurora exhaled slowly. "What does this actually mean?" "It means," Valerie said carefully, "that his mother, Vivian Hale, and even the board cannot interfere with his medical treatment at this time. Only you can approve or deny interventions." Aurora stared at her. "So Eleanor Stone can't use him as leverage anymore?" "Not while he's incapacitated." Aurora swallowed. "And does the board know?" "They will," Valerie replied, "and they won't be pleased." Adrian was the shield that protected the company's image. Without him conscious, without a figurehead, every crack will show. For a moment, Aurora felt the cold satisfaction of justice beginning to bloom, but guilt followed quickly behind it. She hadn't come back to Manhattan for revenge. She came because fate dragged her here. "Is that all?" she asked. Valerie hesitated again. "No, there's something else." Aurora braced herself. "What now?" Valerie lowered her voice. "Adrian asked to see you. Before the surgery. He was conscious for a moment. He told the nurses, 'If anything happens, tell Aurora I'm sorry.'" The words hit her like a punch. Apology wasn't enough, not after years of lies, humiliation, manipulation. But hearing it shook her more than she wanted to admit. "I'm not ready to see him," Aurora said. "You may not have a choice. Once he wakes up, he'll ask for you. The staff already expects it. And the media." Aurora lifted a hand sharply. "Don't. Not now." Valerie closed the folder. "Then one last thing, Dr. Bennett. Because you saved his life, you are now part of a hospital investigation. Vivian Hale has filed a conflict of interest complaint." Aurora's stomach dropped. "Of course she did." Valerie sighed. "It may go to the Medical Ethics Board. And Vivian is determined to bury you before her entire career collapses." Aurora pressed a hand to her forehead. "Another battle. Another storm." And then Valerie added quietly, "One more detail. The complaint includes sensitive claims about your children." "Everyone." Aurora froze. "My children?" Valerie nodded grimly. "Yes, Vivian is demanding the hospital investigate their paternity." The hallway seemed to shrink around her. The secret she protected for years, Liam, Noah, Arya, was no longer safe. And the war she thought she controlled had just targeted the 3 lives she loved most. Aurora felt the world tilt under her feet. Her children, her 3 miracles, the only pure thing she had left, were now targets in a war she never asked for. Fear hit her chest so hard she had to grip the hallway railing to steady herself. Valerie continued, voice carefully measured. "Vivian claims the triplets' paternity is a matter of corporate security. She filed that the hospital has an obligation to verify whether any biological connection exists that could impact Stone Biotech's leadership or its public image." Aurora's jaw clenched. "My children are not corporate property." "She's not treating them like children," Valerie said grimly. "She's treating them like evidence." That sentence cracked something inside Aurora. She tore off her surgical gown and strode toward the exit. "I need to go home. Now." Rowan caught up to her halfway down the hall. "Aurora, slow down. What happened?" "They're coming after my kids," she said, her voice trembling with both fury and fear. "Vivian filed a complaint." Rowan cursed under his breath. "She's desperate. The board is fracturing. Eleanor's silence is suspicious. Adrian's unconscious. Vivian is trying to find leverage while she still can. And she chose my children." Aurora's voice broke. "Rowan, I can't lose them. I can't let anyone touch them." "You won't," Rowan said firmly, "but you must be strategic." "No," Aurora snapped. "I need to get to them." He nodded. "Go. Call Celia on your way. She'll know how to block the complaint before it becomes legal action." Aurora didn't wait another second. She sprinted through the parking structure, keys shaking in her hands. The moment she slid into her car, she dialed Celia. The attorney answered instantly. "Aurora, what happened?" "Vivian is going after the triplets." A long, cold silence. Then Celia's tone dropped into steel. "I anticipated this. I've already drafted a motion to seal all paternity records. No clinic or hospital can release anything without your direct approval. And since you hold temporary authority over Adrian's care, Vivian's complaint is dead in the water." And disported. Aurora's breath shook, relief flooding her, but only for a moment. Celia wasn't finished. "But Aurora, complaints like these never stay quiet. Someone leaked that you have children." Aurora's grip tightened on the wheel. "Who?" "We're investigating," Celia said. "But Aurora, brace yourself. If the media gets a scent of this, your privacy evaporates overnight." Aurora's heart slammed violently, her vision blurring for a split second. "My kids didn't ask for any of this." I quoted. "I know," Celia said. "You protect them. I'll protect the law." When Aurora finally pulled into the driveway of her Aspen home, her lungs ached from holding too much fear. She didn't even lock the car. She sprinted inside. "Clara?" she shouted. "Clara!" The nanny appeared instantly, eyes wide. "They're fine. They're upstairs napping. What happened?" Aurora pulled her into a fierce hug. "Thank God. I thought—" Clara held her shoulders gently. "Aurora, the kids are safe. No one came. No one called." But as Aurora ascended the stairs, she felt a strange pressure in her chest, an instinct she couldn't ignore. Something was wrong. The hallway was too quiet. Their door was cracked open, but no soft breathing echoed from inside. "Aurora?" Clara whispered behind her. "They were sleeping a minute ago." Aurora pushed the door open. The cribs were empty. Every blanket tossed aside. Every stuffed animal knocked over. The room looked like a storm had passed through it. Her blood froze. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text message from an unknown number. No name, no threat. Just 4 chilling words. "We have your children." Aurora's scream shattered the silence because the war was no longer about reputations. It had just become a mother's nightmare. Aurora's scream tore through the house. Raw and animal, the sound of a mother stripped to her bones. Clara stumbled backward, covering her mouth, eyes flooding with terror. Aurora lunged toward the cribs as though the children might magically reappear if she searched fast enough. She touched every blanket, every corner, every toy, her hands frantic, shaking violently. "No, no, no, this can't be happening," she whispered, voice cracking. Clara pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the police." But Aurora grabbed her wrist. "No police, not yet." Her breath hitched. "If someone took them, if this is connected to the stones, the police will spook them. They could run." End quote. 1:24. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. A grainy photo. Her babies huddled together on a blanket in the back of a dark van. Liam crying. Noah clutching his brother. Arya staring out as if she knew her mother was near. Aurora collapsed to her knees, a sob ripping through her. "My babies." Then a second message arrived. "Follow instructions. Stay quiet, or they disappear." Clara knelt beside her. "Aurora, who would do this?" Aurora's jaw clenched. Vivian, or someone working under her. She stood abruptly, wiping tears with shaking hands. "We have to move fast." She dialed Celia Ford. The attorney answered instantly. "Aurora? I heard screaming. What happened?" "They took them," Aurora breathed. "My children are gone." Celia's silence lasted only one heartbeat. Then her tone sharpened into steel. "We're activating emergency protocols. Do not contact police yet. I'll pull private security, track the number, and have my tech team trace the photo metadata." Aurora nodded, though Celia couldn't see it. "Hurry. I'm already on it." Next, Aurora called Elliot. He picked up before the first ring finished. "Aurora, what's wrong?" "They kidnapped my children." Her voice broke on the last word. Elliot exhaled sharply, a sound full of rage and fear. "Text me the number. I'll run it through my systems. I don't know who took them." "Disnevermana." "I don't care who," Elliot snapped. "I'm going to find them." Within minutes, Aurora's quiet Aspen Street was flooded with unmarked SUVs. Celia arrived with her team, laptops already open. Elliot flew in on a private jet and burst through the door without knocking. "Aurora." He moved toward her, stopping only when he saw how pale she'd become. "Sit. Breathe. We're going to get them back. I promise you." She shook her head. "Promises don't bring children home. Information does." "And Stender, 2 people." Celia's tech expert called out, "We have something." The photo was taken less than 20 minutes ago. Same region. They're still nearby. Aurora snapped into action. "Track the van. Pull traffic cam feeds. Look for unauthorized vehicles." Elliot stood beside her, already doing it. In another corner, a security agent said, "The number is a burner, but it pinged off a tower near the outskirts of Aspen." Aurora's heart lurched. "That's rural. Lots of empty cabins." Then Clara gasped. "Aurora, the back door." Everyone froze. Aurora turned slowly. The back door, which she knew she locked, was ajar. Cold wind drifted in. A footprint bruised the snow. Someone had entered the house. A note lay on the kitchen counter, folded neatly. Aurora picked it up with trembling fingers. "There is only one way to see them again. Come alone. Midnight. Red Pines cabin. No phone. No security. No lawyers. Elliot grabbed her arm. Aurora, it's a trap. Celia shook her head. They want isolation. They want leverage. Aurora's breath trembled, but her eyes hardened with a mother's ferocity. I don't care. Elliot stepped in front of her. You're not walking into that alone. Aurora met his gaze, broken, furious, unshakable. I am, she said, because they have my children. And somewhere in the snowy darkness, those children were waiting while someone watched Aurora's every move. Snow fell in slow, heavy flakes as Aurora approached Red Pine's cabin, the world muffled under a blanket of winter silence. Her headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the abandoned cabin's warped wooden siding and the crooked chimney outlined against the moon. She parked a full quarter-mile away, the way the kidnappers instructed, and walked the rest of the distance on foot alone, unarmed, her breath fogging in tense bursts. Midnight hung over the forest like a held breath. She could feel eyes on her. Her boots crunched against the ice as she reached the porch. The door creaked open before she touched it. Inside, a dim lantern glowed, casting long, trembling shadows. A single figure stood in the center of the cabin, but it wasn't who she expected. It wasn't Vivian. Wasn't Eleanor. Wasn't anyone from the Stone Empire at all. It was Thomas Pike, Adrian's disgraced former head of security. A man fired years ago for ethical misconduct, though rumors whispered something darker. Blackmail, stolen data, hidden motives. And he was smiling. Hello, Dr. Bennett, he said smoothly. You came quickly. A mother's instinct is a powerful thing. Aurora's pulse spiked. Where are my children? Thomas held up a hand. Safe, for now. Every muscle in her body tensed. If you hurt them? I'm not going to hurt them, he said, unless you force me to. But I think you're smarter than that. If you deal discretion. Aurora scanned the cabin. No cribs, no blankets, no sign of the triplets. Just Thomas, the lantern, and a heavy duffel bag at his feet. What do you want? Aurora asked. Thomas stepped closer, the glow catching the edges of his sharp features. Justice. Compensation. Revenge. Pick whichever word makes you sleep at night. Aurora's voice dropped to a growl. Revenge on who? Adrian? Thomas laughed. Him? No. Adrian was a puppet, useless without his mother. The person I want to hurt is Eleanor Stone. Aurora's breath hitched. Eleanor? What does she have to do with this? Thomas's smile twisted. She destroyed my career. She framed me for embezzlement I didn't commit. Ruined my name so completely I couldn't get a job in security again. His eyes gleamed. So I decided to ruin hers. Aurora's heart slammed painfully. By kidnapping my children? By exposing the Stone family with something they care about? He leaned in. You. And once sevened, Aurora felt cold dread creep up her spine. The triplets are not bargaining chips. Oh, but they are, Thomas said. You are. See, Eleanor thinks she can use you to remove Adrian. But if you disappear, and the children disappear, her entire plan crumbles. Aurora clenched her fists. You won't get away with this. Thomas smirked. I already have. He nudged the duffel bag with his boot. A muffled sound came from inside. Aurora's blood froze. The bag moved. Her heart stopped until a moment later, the zipper slid open from inside, and 3 tiny faces peeked out. Her children. Alive, terrified, but unharmed. Aurora collapsed to her knees, tears flooding her eyes as she reached for them, but Thomas yanked the bag back. Not yet, Doctor. Aurora's voice shook with rage. What do you want me to do? Thomas paced slowly, savoring the tension. You're going to deliver a message to Eleanor, a message that her empire is next. And after you deliver it, you and your little ones will come with me, far away, off the grid. Aurora stiffened. I'm not going anywhere with you. Thomas's smile widened. You won't have a choice. He lifted a small remote from his pocket and pressed a button. Behind Aurora, the cabin door slammed shut. Locked. Outside, footsteps crunched in the snow, multiple footsteps. Thomas tilted his head, satisfied. I brought insurance. Aurora's heart pounded as the lantern flickered violently. Because whoever stepped out of the shadows next was far more dangerous than Thomas Pike. Aurora spun toward the sound of footsteps as 3 figures emerged from the shadows outside the cabin. Dark coats, heavy boots, faces, half hidden beneath hoods dusted with snow. Thomas Pike straightened, confidence radiating off him as if victory were already in his hands. "You see?" he said. "Insurance. Be cousin." But as the figures stepped closer, the lantern's dim glow revealed something Thomas didn't expect. Elliot Hayes at the front, flanked by 2 private security agents wearing tactical gear. Thomas's smirk faltered. "Hayes? How?" "You're sloppy, Thomas," Elliot said coolly. "Burner phones still bounce off towers. And Aurora, she's never alone." Aurora's knees nearly buckled with relief at the sight of Elliot, but she kept her eyes locked fiercely on Thomas. "Give me my children. Now." "It's not a 4. Thomas yanked the duffel bag closer. "Not until Eleanor pays." Elliot cut him off. "Eleanor isn't coming." Thomas bristled. "She will when she realizes her plan is unraveling." "No," Elliot said, "because I told her everything, and she sent a message." Thomas stiffened. "What message?" "That you're expendable." Thomas's face drained of color. Elliot stepped forward, his voice cold and calm. "You were never going to win this. Eleanor doesn't negotiate with loose ends." "Thanks for watching." A crash sounded outside another SUV pulling up. Armed security moved in. Thomas's men panicked, stepping back, hands raised in confusion. "This wasn't the plan," one shouted. Thomas spun toward them. "Hold your ground," I said. "Hold." He didn't finish. Eleanor's personal strike team swarmed the cabin like a storm, efficient, silent, merciless. They disarmed Thomas's men in seconds. Within moments, Thomas Pike found himself on the floor, his wrist pinned behind his back. He screamed, "Eleanor promised me immunity, she promised." A woman stepped inside. Eleanor Stone. Her expression was carved from ice. "My promises," she said, "are selective." Thomas stared at her in horror. "You used me." "Yes," Eleanor replied, "and poorly. You had one task, destabilize Aurora. Instead, you exposed my son, destabilized my company, and kidnapped innocent children." Her lips thinned. "Your usefulness ended the moment you acted without precision." She gave a cold nod. The guards dragged Thomas out. Aurora, heart racing, rushed forward as Elliot scooped the triplets from the duffel bag. She dropped to her knees, pulling all 3 into her arms. Liam sobbed against her neck. Noah clung to her sleeve. Arya touched Aurora's face gently, as if memorizing her safety. "You're okay," Aurora whispered through tears. "You're okay. Mommy's here." Elliot knelt beside her, his voice soft. "They're safe now." End quote. Aurora looked up at him, the man whose DNA shaped her children, whose loyalty had shielded her, whose presence had become a lifeline she never expected. Gratitude and something deeper welled inside her. Eleanor watched them silently before speaking. "Dr. Bennett, you protected my son when he didn't deserve it. You exposed the truth when no one else dared. And you saved 3 innocent lives tonight." She paused. "My family owes you a debt." Aurora rose slowly, holding her children close. "I don't want anything from the Stone family." Eleanor nodded, unexpectedly respectful. "Then consider this my last involvement. Adrian will sign full relinquishment of any parental claim. Vivian Hale will be dismissed and discredited. And Stone Biotech will publicly clear your name." Aurora met her gaze. "And then stay out of our lives." "For everyone's sake," Eleanor said, "I will." 2 weeks later, Manhattan buzzed with headlines. Stone Biotech restructures. CEO steps down. Dr. Aurora Bennett cleared of all allegations. Vivian Hale faces federal investigation. Justice had arrived clean, sharp, undeniable. On a quiet morning in Aspen, Aurora watched her children play in the snow while Elliot stood beside her on the porch. "You saved them," she whispered. Elliot shook his head. "No, you did. You always have." She looked at him, then really looked and felt something settle inside her. Something warm. Something hopeful. Something earned. "Elliot," she said softly, "do you want to stay? With us?" His breath caught. "Aurora, I'd like nothing more." She smiled faintly, then "Stay." As the triplets ran toward them, laughing, Aurora felt the weight of years finally lift. Her family was safe. Her truth was known. Her future was hers. And for the first time in her life, Aurora Bennett chose happiness fully, freely, and without fear. So, that's where our story ends, my wonderful friends. And if you're still here, listening with me till this very moment, then something in this journey must have touched your heart in a way only real pain and real strength can. You know, stories like Aurora's remind us of something Marcus Aurelius once wrote: "The obstacle is the way. What breaks you can also be what builds you. What tries to silence you can become the reason you finally speak." Maybe you've been hurt. Maybe someone underestimated you, betrayed you, or tried to define your worth. But like Aurora, you're allowed to rise again quietly, powerfully, in your own time. Healing isn't loud. It's choosing yourself. It's protecting what matters. It's remembering that no one gets to write your ending except you. If this story made you feel seen, even just a little, then don't leave quietly. Let's keep walking this path together. Hit that like button, share this with someone who needs strength today, and subscribe to our channel so you never walk into the next story alone. Your journey matters, and I'm right here with you.